You know, this is a not a metaphorical circle, but this is a real circle. And now that we have a mic, it makes it all the much more. Oh, we're gonna come up. Oh. Oh, okay. Hi, online people. All right, so we're going to start with this with a little activity called sound ball because it's the afternoon and this is meant to be sort of like an energizer and just super silly and fun. So Kirsten likes super silly and fun. Okay, so I'm going to make a sound, and a noise of, or a syllable or a couple syllables, and then I'm going to throw that to the next person who will make the same sound that I made and then add on, and we'll see how far we can go. All right?
Do we have to like repeat 2, 3, 4?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Blurp. Blurp. Blugga, blugga, blugga.
Blurp, blugga, blugga, blugga. Oops.
Blurp, blugga, blugga, blugga. Oops.
Whoop. Blurp. Ugga, ugga, ugga. Blugga, blugga. Whoop. Zip. Oops.
I forgot. All right. We'll start one more. All right. John, come on and join us. Okay. We're starting a new one though. Okay.
Sound, and then you pass it to the next person, they have to repeat that sound and add a new one. And then you pass it to someone else, they gotta repeat that sound, and a new one.
It's like the name game.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Plop.
Plop, erp,
Plop, erp, boop. Plop, erp, boop.
Plop, blurp, boop.
Zip.
Yip.
Flop, erp, oop, zip. Whoop. Whee.
Thank you guys. All right. So. Oh. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. I will pass the microphone to you, Jose. Let's all sit at the end. Why don't we sit actually at this table? Let's sit at this table here. And then we are going to pick one of the cards. As what the three of you together decide which of those cards you would like to pick and then come bring it to this table. And this will be our table where we work. All right.
That's the best one for the
so.
online folks? Okay.
After 3-on-1. 3-on-1 in it. Let's go. All right. Yeah. Okay. Looks like a what?
Sunset.
We'll come back to that later, but just it's sitting there.
All right. Well, thank you for coming. The majority of the people in this room work on this data adventure project, so they have an upper hand in knowing what a data adventure is. But we are really, really lucky to have gotten some funding at the Santa Clara County Office of Education through the Education Innovation Research Program to look at data science from a unique perspective. And the basic idea is that data is everywhere and that it's in unexpected places. And when we think about it creatively, we can learn about it, find places in our lives where it makes sense, apply it. And we call it an adventure, right? Something that we learn and we feel energized by. It's like the opposite of a unit or a lesson, right? It's like an adventure, something you get excited about. And so we are creating a number of these. We're not sure it's exactly how many. It's going to be 4, 6, maybe more. And we're in a co-design phase right now. So we're actually really happy you're here, and you can give us feedback about this session, about how we structured it, and also ideas about how to go about designing these things. And of course, we also want to recruit you to join us in the project. We have a co-design session coming up in a few weeks, and we'll have lots of opportunities for folks to collaborate with us. So we hope that you like this enough that you'll consider that. So sure.
My name is Kirsten, and I work at an educational nonprofit called WestEd. And I was high school chemistry and physics teacher, and I love the physics of sound.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let us know if ours is more fun. Small but mighty.
My name's Alex. I'm a teacher at Luther Burbank School here in San Jose. And I picked this session because I think music is a powerful tool in education. And it's a powerful tool in memory recall also. So when people hear music, when they hear something they think is really catchy, it's a lot easier for them to remember it. And when I was in elementary school, one of my teachers played music that taught us our times tables. And to this day, I remember it. I remember the songs. So I think it's an extremely powerful tool to teach children in 8th grade.
My name is Paul. I'm one of the vice principals at Sonoma Valley High School up north. I chose this section because I was in music and band from 2nd grade all the way through college. So, and I also oversee our arts and music program.
And I'm Nico. I work at WestEd, and I am working on this project. In my background, I worked mostly in a K-5 setting, doing science and engineering is kind of my sweet spot. And when I was in the classroom, that was what I love to do the most. Heather? And also, yep.
Right. I'm Heather Anderson. I work with the Inclusion Collaborative. I am happy to be a part of this team. Thing about music, I think, is that it is attached to memory. So some of my greatest memories are attached to music. So music's a really important part of it. I was not in band, but music's definitely a big part of our family. So.
Uh-oh, we lost this. There we go. I'm Jose. I will also work at WestEd and I work on this project with all of these characters. I love music. I feel I use it all the time to regulate my mood, for enjoyment, for distraction, for connection. I make playlists all the time. I share them with people. I used to make tapes for people. So I just love music as a vocabulary for life. I'm really motivated by it, and it's really fun actually getting into this. And if you do get into this, like, it's amazing what the data scientists have done in terms of visualizing music and thinking about how to represent it, and it's just really, really cool. Okay.
We need to get more mics in here. Okay, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Zunika, from Amador Valley High School, teaches 11th and 12th grade, and shared that a lot of our students have sensory issues and they respond very well to music. I absolutely love music.
So I gave a talk on music and education at the UDL Con a couple of months ago. And so these are just the slides that I presented there as kind of an on-ramp onto this topic. And so the basic kickoff is like, oh, there's a new report that has been issued by the National Institutes of Health. And we finally, after many millions of dollars, we have the answer. And the answer is 7,776,000,000 people. And that is the number of people on Earth who report that they appreciate music in one way or another, which comes to just about 99.8% percent of the population of this earth. And so it's probably like one of the few activities, right, that is not directly related to survival or reproduction. It's something that is universal then, right? If we all do it, it must be universal, but we don't ever, none of us like engage in it in the same way. So this is, again, those of you who know me and you get to know me, this, this idea of universal but variable keeps coming up. And we use it to create meaning in our lives in lots of different contexts, right? We use it to recognize significant occasions. We use it to signify culture. We use it to signify traditions. There are lots of different genres, and we find identity in them. We get entertained. And it comes up in social events and also a lot of our identity development as we're growing up, right? People identify with that. So we see it all over the place. We use it in all these different ways. And the data scientists I was talking about have given us some ways of thinking about it. So this is actually an individual who was charting their own musical, the tone of their own musical tastes. And they saw that they were interested in a whole bunch of different things. But you can see the categories: joyful, sad, energizing, dreamy, triumphant. And these represent frequency and cohesion. So the places where you see deeper colors, that's more of it, and so on. That's what we call a representation. This is the same individual, just with a simpler representation, who was just interested in seeing how their musical listening habits changed over time. And this one is simpler, right? It just is genre and artist and over 2 periods of time. Again, this is the same person presenting exactly the same data, showing how different genres have changed over time. Anybody familiar with spider graphs? Spider graphs are cool. Just like once you see spider graphs, it's hard to turn back. But it allows you to plot a lot of information. And so this shows a bunch of different dimensions, which Spotify actually calls audio features. So we'll be actually looking at that in a minute. But the two lines represent songs that are hits versus songs that are not hits. And you can see areas in which they're similar. And actually, you can see for the most part, they're similar, but also areas where they're different. So if you were trying to make a hit song and make money, like they do really well in Korea, you would look at something like this. This is a heat map or a correlation matrix of the different aspects of audio features. You see danceability, energy, loudness, acousticness, liveness, valence, tempo. All of those things are things that are available in the Spotify database, and we're going to be looking at those. What's interesting, if you look at something like this, right, is that there are some things that sort of hang together, but there are a lot of things that are not particularly related, right? And so high relationship and low relationships are both interesting. Okay. So now I'll turn it. I think you're going to run us through our activity, right? Okay. Any questions or anything or comments? What do you guys think of that little spiel? Anything work there? Ditch it? Start it? Okay.
Okay, so does either of you have Spotify already? Then go ahead and the QR code will take you to a Spotify playlist. If you didn't, I could do it on my phone, but it's and then we can if it doesn't work, we can do mine. So let's the two of you, and especially in particular, look at the songs on the playlist. And if there's ones that you're not familiar with, just sort of click on them so you can play little bits of songs and spend a little bit of time getting to know the playlist. And I won't look. I won't look. Um, oh yeah. Yes. That's awesome. So think about, and then so also think about like with those songs together, like what's the story? What are some things? But yeah, and also what about, are there any songs you want to listen to little blurbs of, or since it is a playlist, you can listen to it.
Yeah, so I'd say like.
And how are they doing on
Wow,
Zoom?
yeah, I know most things.
Are they on the same one as us, or doesn't matter?
Uh, They're all very upbeat.
Hmm.
That's like a theme I've noticed across them. They are higher tempo, more upbeat, more dancey. Most of them are pop oriented. Most of them have like very positive lyrics. Oh, it's okay. So a couple of things I noticed, most of them are upbeat. They have happy, positive lyrics. They're pop oriented.
Do you want to play any
Yeah.
more just to kind of check that vibe out? Just to give it a minute.
Sure. Just from the phone here. Yeah, that'll be.
Which one do I play? Suddenly I see.
That's a good one.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
then.
that's been a while since I've heard that song. Yeah. By a KT Tunstall, is that how you pronounce it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. Good one. Yeah. Very upbeat. Yeah.
It's pretty fast.
Yeah.
This one is.
I'm wondering how where Electric Feel fits into this playlist though. That's the one, that's like kind of the one where I'm like, it's upbeat, it's catchy, but it's odd. It's the odd one out on this
Yeah, could you play
playlist.
Electric Field?
That's
Second
one of
from
my,
the top,
yeah.
second
Yeah.
from the top. Yeah.
So this is psych pop, psychedelic pop. So yeah, one of my favorite genres of music. So this was one of the songs that got me into the genre. Yeah.
All right.
So let's go back to the deck.
That was called Morning Motivation.
Oh, you saw that was yeah, it's on the packet too at this point, yeah. So you've already heard some great descriptive words about how you would describe the playlist. Did you have anything you wanted to add while we?
No, it just seems like if you were down or if you weren't you're feeling
A little upbeat.
down, you would play this list. I mean, it's like it seems like it's trying to raise you up.
Oh, nice. I like that. So there are two ways to sort of access this data. There's a pretty awesome website that was built by somebody on our team, but I also sort of printed it out so that we could sort of look at it like jointly. But I'm not going to give you too much sort of backstory, but these are the data that you can collect connected to the music. So just if you want to look at those and see what you notice, something that might be surprising about what the variables are, what data is collected and shares. Okay, great. Oh, this is, oh.
They are pretty unpopular.
Okay, so is
I'm
that-
on music forums online almost every day, and they're one of the most. Sorry if there's any AJR fans. Oh, they are a group that people talk negatively about pretty often. So
Okay.
okay.
Say in the chats.
What do they have to say about AJR? Basically, the criticisms they have are that their music is corny and cheesy and it's cringe-inducing. Yeah, those are just like that's like a very light way of putting it. They've said harsher things that I can't say. So
Okay, yeah.
What does popularity mean? Like,
Mhm.
if
Mhm.
something's cringy, is it unpopular, or is popularity somehow tracking like how often it's played, or
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know the answer.
yeah, that's a good question. I think by this metric, I'm just guessing. I think by popularity they mean most played.
So this is the website. This was all printed out from the website.
Spotify assigns from 0 to 100.
What does
Oh.
valence mean?
Valence, I don't know.
Valence is one of the.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Valence electron. Okay.
How does this in any way connect to some of the, before we were looking at the data, you had some descriptive words connected to the playlist. How does this connect to some of the things you were thinking about? Like songs that are like lift you up or motivate you?
Oh, look at this one.
Hmm.
The average energy of the song in this playlist.
Yeah.
I mean, we're down here on this end.
Danceability to the higher end of the spectrum for danceability and energy.
Clustered together.
Yeah.
It's not-
Yeah. What's interesting in this one, the popularity of the songs. Also.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So does that mean that upbeat songs are happier than downbeat ones? I mean, we don't have that comparison, but look, they're all,
I would say so.
what do you have there? What is it?
Liveliness, or is it liveness or liveliness?
Oh, yeah, because it's showing they're not very lively. Is that how you read it, or do you read it as something else?
Oh, no, it was when it was performed live.
Oh, live. Wow. I've never liveness. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that means that most of it's not performed live.
Yeah, most of them.
Okay.
Interesting.
I think it's the recording. It's not live.
Oh. the
Oh, I see.
recording was not.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I don't think any of
So it wasn't from
these
the
were the
concert.
studio versions as far
Okay,
as.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's hear. Distribution of musical keys?
Oh, yep. The key of the songs. Yeah.
That's a pretty big distribution.
So let's see.
C,
C and
C and C flat, C sharp.
Mhm.
Oh, interesting. The key of C is 20%.
so most songs are in that key. And then G and most, okay, yeah, G is a very high key. So a very upbeat key. Yeah. Yeah, that's not too surprising. Yeah, I would say though the higher beat, more upbeat songs are more popular generally.
What is the key of C sharp? Look at it, that's equal
Mhm.
to C.
Is what?
The key of C sharp. Isn't that interesting? Okay.
Do we know which songs are in which key by chance?
I think we can look here.
Okay.
We've got the full data. So let's see what.
Oh,
I know
okay,
there's
yeah.
very small
All right.
so-
So Dog Days Are Over is in G. That's
Here's a C sharp.
is C sharp. Electric Feels in C sharp. Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's
Shut Up and Dance, which is very, Shut Up and Dance is very, very upbeat, like more so than Electric Feel. This one too. Valerie, okay. Yeah, and Feel It Still. Yeah.
So now you've had a little bit of time to look at this data connected to music.
Mhm.
So that, oh, go ahead. You take the,
Oh,
oh,
yes,
sorry. Hannah. So we sort of spent a little bit of time exploring. I know the first time that I did this, I had not ever thought about music having this type of data. Like just for seeing for the first time the things that Spotify is collecting was really interesting to me, like danceability, key, tempo category. So genres, I think, was one I would have predicted. Speechiness. I don't know. Yeah. Happiness. I spent a lot of time thinking about happiness and playing with different playlists and putting them together to try to optimize happiness. Anyway, so this is the morning motivations playlist. So when you, one of the games that's on the Inspire Joy games, one of the games is to add a song to a conference playlist. So people that are participants that are coming to this conference have added songs to that playlist. So we have, yeah. So we have, that's called the Joyful Jams conference playlist. What do you think might be like this playlist versus one that was just conference participants putting songs on a list? Might you predict would be different or the same?
It's going to be a greater variety. I think there's going to be a greater variety of different songs if several different people attending the conference are adding to it, since everybody's music taste is different.
Prediction?
Yeah, already I'm looking through. It's much, much more varied than the last playlist. Some good songs on here.
Here, this is even smaller. I'm so sorry about this, but
So I guess what this means is different people consider different songs joyful jams.
Or maybe they're just what they want to hear at the conference, like they might not have had joy in their.
Yeah.
Here, the tempo's a lot higher. This list.
it is interesting.
Yeah, the tempo's a lot higher on this list than the other one.
Interesting. Can we get some data on that?
Oh,
Wow. Oh, that's it. Go.
So the highest tempo on this one is like a 140, 150.
Oh, 150, yeah.
This one goes all the way up to like 180. There's 156, another 186, 149, 147, 65. So the tempo's way higher.
What's our winning tempo? Is it Chuck Baby?
Yeah.
Want to hear a snippet of Chuck Baby, highest tempo?
Yeah, but it's got a secondary beat that's slower. So you have a grounding beat.
Ready to line dance?
What else has it got? So this is interesting. These are the genres
Mhm.
of the two.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, there's that, like there's pop.
Mm-hmm.
Are they not in the same
They're not
spot
in the
for
same spot.
comparison?
Yeah,
comparing
here's
apples
art
to
pop and
apples?
here's pop, so it's not really easy to compare.
Yeah. The genres are much more varied on this playlist also.
Okay, let's see what.
So I'm hearing you talk about like that concept of variability. We don't
Mhm.
kind of connect like what we affective and cognitive experience of music with the data science stuff. Very busy concept, concept. So the things that you were talking about, pointing to representations of variability.
Yeah, different music tastes for different people. And
I'm sorry, that was my fault. I'll just repeat everybody for everybody online that we were just I was just trying to connect the um, cognitive and psychological and affective responses to music with statistical and measurement ones. So in our case, frequency, comparison, trends, stuff like that.
So we know that our students are coming to us with different interests, with different challenges, different abilities, different character traits, different, the concept of variability. So how do we design for that variability? And when we're looking at our students, we want to look at them as whole. Do we have the, I have the cards, but do you want to show the visual representations? So when we're thinking about our students as a whole person and we're looking at these different ways of looking at them, 65% of us are visual learners. So it's kind of nice to see, our students, kind of clumped. Can you go to the next slide? There we go. Oh, no. Okay, talked about variability. Here we go. Okay, so here's Kendra. And here's just one way to represent visually, about Kendra. Here's her as a whole person. So some of the things she enjoys, some of the supports that she needs in order to succeed. So like meds, she needs breaks, homework, some of her social. She is very outgoing. She works well in groups. So she's probably, a little bit extroverted. She's into sports. She likes music, thinking. So this was one way, taking all of her identifiers of viewing that. We have another way we can look at it. This is a little bit different, but same concept. So we're just kind of like clumping things together here. And then what we've created are these cards. So we have these persona cards. It's the same information. It's a little bit more linear. And it's showing us a spectrum of different traits. So such as analytical or creative. So we have Sasha. Sasha's kind of in the middle there as far as like analytical or creative. But we see like talkative versus quiet. She's very talkative. Whereas musical versus not musical, she is not very musical. So we're looking at Sasha as a whole person. So we see that she's female, Korean, speaks English in 8th grade, likes music. She's a self-starter. She enjoys the technology, a leader, creative. And then I think we have one more to show. Jen. So same thing here. We have Jen, female, Chinese. We have some of those traits, but then we see that Jen is very independent, very inquiry-based, very creative, not so musical, not so goal-oriented, not so speedy. So taking all of these traits into account, how do we design this activity to meet the needs of these individual students? So as we're going through this activity, we want you to choose a persona card and just kind of go through this experience in the shoes of one of those learners. What might the barriers be? Where are they going to be successful? Where are they going to be challenged? What are some things we might need to change based on the learner's style?
And once we pick one or two of the personas, then we'll talk about how we might design a way for them to represent data. So we'll sort of do an application of the activity, like a next step application of this.
The activity being kind of what we did.
Looking at the data and then thinking about how we would design an activity for Ari or Chloe or Dion to represent the data that we explored. Just after you pick the two personas, then we'll put that slide up and yeah.
Oh, is this me? Oh, okay, so we're selecting one or two, right? And then looking at the back of the card where we've got all of that spectrum there. Okay, so a few specific things to think about is the creation, selection, or curation of the music itself, collaboration. So we had our Sasha, who's very outgoing, but not all of our students are. So what might that activity look for somebody who's a little bit more introverted? And just the general approach to the activity. Also thinking through what their strengths and challenges are when they're working on this activity. And again, the barriers. Do we need to redesign this in some way? How are we going to make this accessible for our student, our persona? And we've got that up there for reference. Or, oh, are you going to put the,
So
Okay.
if you think about students going through an activity like this, like how would they, respond to the activity in general? How would these data displays, this approach to representing information, how would they connect to it or not connect to it? And then we also wanted to imagine how they might work together or independently and how they would engage in the comparison. So there's that kind of stuff. And then there's the this with the more academic stuff, which is to what extent are do we need to design the activity to get at these concepts of variability and frequency comparison and so on.
Looking at these two, you see that they're both creative and they like to take risks. And they like to collaborate on things. So it'd be easy to pair them up. But I see some differences too for like Dion when you're looking at what he's gonna do or what he may struggle with is like he's not very fast where the other one is self-motivated and he may need some extra time or need to slow down so he gets a better understanding.
And I'm sort of stepping outside a little bit in terms of developing this activity for as a data adventure. Sort of given the opportunity in the beginning to interact with a data set, then being able to predict what you might find in a second data set, and then sort of interact with the second data set. And then the third step might be, would be to, it could be to sort of represent that data in some way. So what we were thinking about doing for this next step, and we might think about as an activity, like think about for if you have Yuhong and Dion in your class. And if we're looking at sort of the data representation, let's just pick option 2 maybe. So if we wanted to create an opportunity for both of these students to visualize or represent the data in some way, and give them the opportunity to do drawings, possibly to do images or words. We could even write a song. We could. So how could we support them representing data? What would be after they've already sort of spent time with this data, what would be a good way to structure a representation activity for these two?
A lot of data to take in to answer that question.
I know, it is. So
I
many
know.
levels of data.
So we want to try to, just to check for understanding, we want to try to figure out how to support Dion and Yohong in representing data about music. And how would we do that?
Originally, we were going to have the participants represent the data activity with we were going to have posters and markers, and just didn't feel like the right play with 2 people here. If they're okay. I mean, do you feel like we should bust out the markers, or can we be super meta and just do having done an activity where you are sort of representing in some way the data, then designing it or modifying it and adapting it for students?
One thing you brought up, Kirsten, I think was a good one, which is what's the right amount of data to be presenting, particularly for students, right? I think as you bring it up here, it's like, yeah, that's just a lot for anybody to even, somebody who thinks about a lot of variability and even data and stuff. So it's a lot of things. So maybe it's too many. Even for teachers. Yeah.
Profile, there's a lot going on in the profile, so I'm thinking like, well, which of these things would really make a difference? I'm thinking about if I'm trying to represent data, which of these attributes are really going to make a difference in how I approach it. So I was thinking about if something's open-ended or, open-ended enough, but not overly open-ended. Like in some ways, we've got somebody who really likes open-ended things and somebody who's sort of in the middle. And I find sometimes if I work on teams with people, some people are like totally want it open-ended and the others want a lot more structure. And I feel like if I was to work with these 2 guys, I might like give them a choice of like 3 different variables and, like some more structure, but choice.
So are we talking about the playlist example? So now in terms of, so in representing the playlist from Spotify, maybe just focusing on the danceability or the energy or the tempo. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about these cards?
I was talking about thank you. I was talking about that if I was to have them represent the data, I would maybe narrow it to like a choice of 3. Like if I would say like, pick 2 or 3 of these variables that you think are interesting to you, and then find a way to represent them that shows something about this playlist. It's still pretty open-ended. I don't know. I'm trying to get that sweet spot because it feels like Yohong likes open-ended, and Dion is in the middle, so a bit more structure. So I'm trying to think about something that's both choice and structure. I don't know. What is your reaction? Do you have other thoughts?
I would agree. It is a lot of data to take in, and I think narrowing it down to 2 or 3, like you said, would make it more simple. And the connection I'm making is related to differentiating instruction for different students, because there is a lot of variability with learning too, and different learning needs among students. So how can we use these different characteristics to meet the students' learning needs? For example, Dion's distractible, Yuhong is more attentive. Okay. So we're going to need a scaffold to help Dion stay focused in class. That scaffold might not particularly be necessary for Yuhong though.
Did you have a particular idea of a scaffold in mind?
For somebody who struggles to stay focused or is less attentive, more engaging teaching. That will be what comes to my mind immediately. Lessons that aren't boring, lessons that really get the students talking, get them interacting with the teacher and with each other. And I think music, tying it back to music, could be a helpful scaffold there for somebody who's distractible. Because like with my example with the times tables, if you incorporate music, it could be more memorable for the student and more fun. So it could help them learn in that case.
I think even like this slide is a scaffold for me, like if I,
Mhm.
because I'm like, what's in front of me, I'm paying attention to, but then I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I'm like, oh, option 1 or option 2. Like that's, you know, like, that's the way I work at work. Like I have a whiteboard and I put what's important in front of me so that I can keep looking at it as a scaffold, just to piggyback on your idea. I'm trying to think, what is it that we want them to show with this data? Like what would be important? What are we trying to help them understand or do with data? And that would help me to know how to structure it. What do you think would be important from this data set that they might, or from this activity?
So in our little working groups, we've been playing with ideas about how to, uh, you know, make this something that you learn about statistics essentially, but have it go through a more engaging, authentic way. So you're not learning, you don't know you're learning about statistics. You're like, oh, well, I'm comparing this distribution to that distribution. And you know, you're doing hypothesis testing essentially, right? And then you learn that through the back door. But one of the, and I think it was your idea, Heather, I think we had an idea maybe that the class task was to design a music festival where they had to go through the data science process of collecting data on what the interests of the community were and then match those interests to some kind of event and then there's all kinds of things you can get into like planning for stages and traffic and so and that has even more moving parts than this, right? So but one question I think, I mean, what about this, like how explicit, like if part of the goal is to say you need to understand what a distribution is, do we need to say that? We say, oh, look at this, these are all distributions, and maybe you heard about distributions before in other places, but it applies in music.
Another thing that the connected to this is the ability for groups to make their own playlists so that the data that they're looking at is from their own songs. So that would be another layer in terms of engagement for the, connecting to the students. Then that's not really a metric that is captured on the back of the card, but I do think other than like, I don't know, would that kind of engagement or connection to their sort of real live, things that are important to them in their real lives I can imagine would be helpful to both of them.
The other thing that we had envisioned today, if we had had multiple groups, is that there would be a activity for the group to do this activity, like create either select the representations that are of greatest interest, or create some new variation, and then do a presentation of a sort. Hopefully to say, you know, this is the best playlist of the group. And then we would have a little voting activity, and that was trying to mimic the adventureness a little bit, right? To create some kind of excitement that beyond, you know, this is more than that, or I like this more than that.
That was engaging about the categories of the data or looking at data connected to music.
That's interesting. I thought it was interesting looking at the similarities between songs that a lot of people find popular. That was interesting to me. Knowing that those songs share a lot of the same characteristics. And I think applying that to education too, we could also collect more data from our students and see what scaffolds and techniques work for large groups of students.
And I'm trying to go between the, like, we have data here that's represented on a table, and then we have these other representations here. And I'm thinking, like, for me to actually make my own representation, other than talk from a representation that's here, I'd have to go back to this and really like digest what's here to then think about what, you know, what data do I want to take and how do I want to represent it. So it's surprising to me how I keep wanting to just go to the representations of data and go from ones that are already here. But the task is asking me to make a representation, which means that I actually have to go, I think I have to go back here, but so
But you were representing the difference between the two playlists.
oh, the difference between the two okay. Because that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to see like, how is this playlist different from this playlist? Okay. Because then because that's where I was trying to lay side by side, like, you know, okay. Any other surprises or comments?
No, I just looking at a playlist like this, I like to see like using this information and to see if kids could complete or create a playlist for themselves that represents themselves that would help tie that data to the back here somehow and create their own profile.
Or you could create a playlist for Dion. I mean, this wouldn't be probably not the most useful information for me to know about Dion to create a playlist for him, but there could be, you could be given interesting information about Dion and then making him. All right, anything else?
In terms of a, we're going to have a opportunity to meet with teachers for half a day, I guess, or something like that. Yeah, so what kind of feedback would you give us on this kind of sequence of activities in terms of whether it, you know, because what we need to ultimately do is design some adventures that could be, you know, we had originally conceived of them as being, you know, 4 or 5 day adventures that would take you through a sequence of things, and music is one. We've also got one that we're working on now, which is called My Name, My Identity, which is focusing on names, construction of names, meaning of names, representing like people's names in different ways. There's also other things like slang, teen slang. And so we're trying to find things that would be, and oh, by the way, we're focused on middle schoolers mostly. Um, so, you're both, teachers and you think hard about this stuff all the time. So, what, and so we have two audiences, right? We have to work with teachers to design something that will work in real classes, be engaging, be doable, and help students learn. Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest as part of the adventure, just gathering more interest from the students, what music they like, what else they like to do, sports they like to play, games they like to play, any other interests they have, and then gathering that data amongst the class, or you could even do the whole school. You could have them go and survey students in various classrooms all around the school, collect all that data, and then incorporate lessons with that data because it's something they're personally interested in.
I really like even doing like a class playlist and then doing a whole school playlist, or doing like a first grade playlist versus like a sixth grade playlist. It would be really interesting to compare, right? Instead of looking at sort of this data, looking at data from your own school or your own class would be pretty, I think that'd be very cool. And then you could also maximize, I think you would be interested then if you did want to make the most in class, you could see who could come up with the most danceable playlist. And that shows that you have to be looking at the data connected to the songs and changing the playlist to sort of optimize for that, right? So the mathematical experience for the students is making changes guided by data to improve their playlist for a specific metric. So.
So on our team, we've been thinking about this now since January, and in June there was an article published in the New York Times, which was the question: is Taylor Swift more popular than the Beatles? And it was a great data science kind of exploration of this very topic, and it actually showed first of all, got into the complexity. Like, it's very hard to compare popularity today to popularity in the 60s, right? Then it was the way we consume music is different. But one of the really interesting things that came out of the article was that most of the famous acts tended to be at the peak of their popularity at the beginning of their career. And then and they were always still popular, but like the big hits were early, and they kind of have that shape of a distribution. And both Beyonce and Taylor Swift have the opposite, that they've gotten more, they've been popular, but they got more popular. And it kind of stopped there. And then Sung, who's on our team, who you've probably seen running around, he and I were going back and forth on it. And one of the things that has happened with Beyonce and Taylor Swift is that the MBAification of the world has been applied to music, right? So there's Taylor Swift has something new every single 6 months. It's a re-release, a new release. There's like keeping her in and developing new fans. It's like it's become kind of a science. And then the other thing that was interesting, that and Sung actually had to go through some weird VPN thing to actually get usage statistics from China. And so if you actually do that, BTS is far more popular than either Beyonce or Taylor Swift. So, and then or the Beatles. But then that was also interesting too, about how Billboard actually changes its criteria about what all the time. And you could argue it tends to favor American and European artists.
only time will tell. The question of is Taylor Swift as popular as the Beatles? Let's wait 60 years and find out.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
60 years from now, then have a better answer. So you want to fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes, everybody gets a Grammy. You could, yeah, and you should take a stack of the cards too if you want them. Thank you for participating. Yeah, and yeah, and
Continue to do this, and they're doing a play test on this on My Name, My Identity coming up, but I imagine at some point we also might be trying out like things from this.
yeah.
It's that QR code.
Well, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Really nice to meet you. Appreciate your time and attention. And if anybody's left online, thank you too.